For a generation now, schools, parents, social institutions have been fighting a battle with teenage pregnancy. They tried sex education, but that didn't work. Pregnancy went up. They tried free condom distribution. That didn't work either. Pregnancy went up again. They've tried secret abortions, that is, abortions where the child can go have an abortion, the parent doesn't even have to know. Problem with that is that only works after pregnancy, not before. Now some schools are trying abstinence programs over the resistance, I might add, of the abortion lobby and Planned Parenthood and people like that who seem to feel that abortion is the only real solution to the world's population problem, judging by the way they fight any effort whatsoever to curtail abortion. Even if they could have, though, abstinence programs in all the schools, I'm persuaded they would only be able to affect the problem at the margins. They'd be able to help a kid here and a kid there. In fact, there are young people today who are taking chastity vows. They even wear chastity rings. And then Jay Leno, a night or so ago, was making fun of kids wearing chastity rings, which is not what I would like to see in terms of the support of society. I can only hope that some of the kids who are doing so will have the courage to defy that kind of attitude. But by any statistical method, the abstinence program will in the end be a failure. Why? Because it's like a king standing on the beach at the edge of the water and commanding the tide not to come in. The tide's going to come in no matter what kind of obstacles we put in its way. Now some teens, we do our best, as the schools do their best, to try to teach and to help teens understand what's at stake. We've had a program about sex has a price tag, which is one of the best presentations I've ever seen anywhere, anytime. We have lessons on it in our YEA program, but the teens in the church, some of them say they're tired of lessons about sex and drugs. We've heard all that. We don't need any more of that. Well, my answer is just wait until you're tired of sex, because that day is coming. It's already here in Japan. I was stunned recently to read an article about the dropping birth rates in Japan and the lack of interest in sex, the apathy, the ennui that's setting in as people, men and women, turn off entirely different directions and are losing interest in sex. And I'm not surprised, because sex is not something that can be maintained indefinitely over time. Sexual fatigue is setting in. If you doubt that, surely you've seen on television the prevalence of the commercials for Viagra and other like aids. I mean, you would get the impression watching television that it's as common as headaches. Well, if you judge by the ads and the amount of money they're not spending that kind of money on a few guys here and there. They're spending it on a population that's big enough to pay for all those ads and make a profit for the companies producing Viagra, and I forget the names of the other ones. So what's wrong with the abstinence program? Well, the first thing that's wrong with it is that it's a denial of human nature. It's asking kids to maintain a vacuum. And you all know the saying, nature abhors a vacuum. It's not exactly related, but do you remember what Jesus said on one occasion about a homeless demon? You'll find it in Matthew chapter 12, verse 43. When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walks through dry places seeking rest and finds none. Then he says, I will return to my house from whence I came out, and when he is come, he finds it empty, swept, and garnished. Then goes he and takes with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter in and dwell there, and the last state of that man is worse than the first. Then he said something interesting. He said, even so shall it be also unto this wicked generation. Think about that. Now, I'm not using this to talk about demon possession. I'm talking about the principle. It's not, and what Jesus is also talking about, he says it's not enough to just get rid of a demon in a man. You've got to put something in there. Or else when it comes back, you'll be worse than you were before. And so it is with kids. That if you just leave an empty place inside of them, something eventually is going to come back that may be worse than what you got rid of. Every single social program that the social institutions has tried has left the kids empty, swept, and garnished. And notice what Jesus said. He said it's going to be the same way with this evil generation. And I can tell you for sure it's also going to be the same way with this evil generation. This generation has left our kids with a hole inside. And we seem to have no idea how to fill it or what to put in there. Everybody knows the hole is there. The only solution we can suggest is to keep it empty, swept, garnished. But it won't stay that way, unfortunately, because nature abhors a vacuum. I'm not sure how it happened. I'm only sure that it has happened. That our society, for more than a generation now, has lost the power to love. Think about it. We're living in a generation that is losing and has all but lost the power to love, and Viagra can't give it back to them. Nature abhors a vacuum, and the vacuum we have created in our society is being filled with sex. Not love, sex. No, they are not the same thing, and we all know that at our heart. And yet you have to realize that in our society today, sex has become a substitute for love. Now, sex filling that vacuum may sound exciting, and it is for a while, but it can't hold. And that's the thing our society and so many people and so many young people don't understand. It can be exciting for a while, but it simply can't hold. When the sex begins to lose its excitement, and it will, then there is no love to hold us together. Think about it. There was a time when we spoke of making love. If you go back and listen to the songs of the 40s and the 50s, you'll hear songs about making love. Nowadays, people don't speak of making love. They speak about having sex. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing at all. Cover article on Newsweek magazine this week is about marital infidelity. The increase is, and it's getting worse by the week, and it's staggering the scope of it in our society. And it brings to mind what Jeremiah said in chapter 5, verse 7. Jeremiah 5, verse 7. How shall I pardon you for this? Your children have forsaken me, and they have sworn by things that are no gods. When I had fed them to the full, then they committed adultery and assembled themselves by troops in the harlots' houses. They were like fed horses in the morning. Everyone neighed after his neighbor's wife. Shall I not visit for these things, saith the Lord, and shall not my soul be avenged on a nation such as this? We are a nation just like this. Everyone neighs after his neighbor's wife, and it's getting to the place now where she whinnies back. If teaching abstinence is like commanding the tide not to come in, then perhaps there is an alternative. Maybe we should consider giving love a chance. To teach and to give love with the kids so they have something else to work with. Can you teach your kids how to love? I hope you can, because the schools can't. I hope you can find a way to teach your kids how to love, how to give love, how to receive love, because if it isn't done in the family, it's going to be very difficult indeed ever to happen. Now let me see if I can give you some perspective on this issue. Recently, a good friend of mine told me of a young lady who was going with a young man, had a regular ongoing, relationship, how deep the relationship was, boyfriend. She got a telephone call from an old boyfriend, one before, and they chatted for a while on the phone and hung up. Her new boyfriend cursed her and called her names which I could not repeat here in this situation we're in. Well, naturally, she got angry. They broke up. The clock ticks on. Time passes. And I learned that now she's back with that new boyfriend who cursed her and called her names. They are thick as fleas. She is in love with him, and I guess they're headed down that direction. Is she making a mistake? Oh, there's no doubt about that. She's making a terrible mistake, and everybody else can see it. Why can't she? I don't know the girl, have no idea. My guess is, though, that she doesn't really know love. If she did, she would know that this guy does not love her when he curses at her and calls her foul names. I mean, it's over. That's it. He does not love her and is very unlikely to love her now or ever. Now, how can I say this? Well, it wasn't me. It was Paul that said it. He said, love is patient and is kind. He said, love is not easily provoked. Love believes the best. So we know from what Paul says what love is like, and that's not it. Well, let's say he didn't love her then, but he loves her now. How likely is this? And how would she know? Her judgment was what it was when they were going together in the first place. I doubt seriously if her judgment is any better now than it was then. So who is she to really judge this? Girls, when a man mistreats you, he has lost the power to love. That's so important, I'm going to say it again. When a man mistreats you, he has lost the power to love. And few men who lose the power to love ever find it again. Not none, but few. Ronald L said in a book, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. He said that when men lose the power to love, they substitute power over. And I have had very clear reason in my lifetime to see exactly how that works among men. When they have lost the power to love, they substitute power over. Such men have no respect for others. They have no real respect for themselves, but themselves, that's all they care about, but certainly no respect for others. I remember, I was meditating back on this, I remember my first date. I was dressed to the nines, had tie knotted up snugly, my shirt was pressed, my trousers were pressed, my shoes were shined, my hair was combed. I think I was using Brill cream at the time, and I had that good, wet head look, which came back for a while. I don't know where it is right now. When I picked up my date, she was beautiful. She had on a gorgeous formal dress. Her hair was done. Her makeup was perfect. I gave her a little corsage, which we pinned on her formal, and we went to the dance on the city bus. I didn't have a car. I was 16, and I don't remember if I even had a driver's license at that time. My parents, I don't think, had a car at that time. The girl's name was Allie, and I would come to know her, love her really like my own life. Neither of us knew each other well enough to love each other. Not then. Not on that first date. But both of us had self-respect, and both of us had respect for one another. We showed it. I showed it in the way I treated her, and she showed it to me. It makes me wonder, in a way, if respect is the essential foundation upon which love can be built. I think I can safely say that people who do not respect one another will never come to love one another. I'll stand on that. People who do not respect one another will never come to love one another. Now, that was a formal dance. But if I had come to pick her up for a sock hop, which I did at other times, if I'd come to pick her up for a sock hop wearing dirty jeans, shaggy, needing a haircut, hair uncombed, having made no special attempt at all to look nice for her, what could she have concluded from that? 3 things. A, I had no self-respect. B, more important, I had no respect for her. C, most important of all, I was not the kind of man she wanted in her life, because I was a man without respect. Now, I was a boy, not a man, but I was on my way to becoming one. And you can tell a lot what the tree's going to look like by the way the twig is bent. And I want to emphasize something crucial here. It is not just a matter of appearance. We can beat that appearance thing to death. We can have dress codes till the cows come home. That's not what this is about. What it's about is respect. Respect for yourself and respect for the girl or fellow that you are trying to relate to in your life and to other people. That's what it's about. Respect. You remember what Jesus said on one occasion? Matthew 22, verse 11. Matthew 22, verse 11. When the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man which had not on a wedding garment. And he said to him, Friend, how come you in here having not have a wedding garment? And the man was speechless. And the king said to the servants, Bind him hand and foot, take him away, cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, why such a radical reaction? Over clothes? Oh, it wasn't about clothes. It was about respect. The reaction was because the man had no respect for the king, his wedding party, the king's daughter, the groom, the guests at the wedding, or anybody else. That's why it was an issue. I don't know if you remember this I think it was in the Godfather movie, wasn't it? That one of the things that really irritated the character that Marlon Brando played about some idiot, he said, man's got no respect. Respect was important. Even when you disagree, even when your man's a murderer, even when no matter what's going on, your own self-respect, your respect for other people is important. It's crucial. In Godfather's case, it might have cost the man his life, and in this case, in Jesus' parable, it seems to have been just as serious to not show respect. Now, candidly, I think this is how fathers should react when some scruffy-looking boy turns up at his front door to take his daughter on a date. What I would have to say to such a young man is, you don't respect my daughter, you don't date my daughter. If you don't treat my daughter right, you may have a visit from my friend Guido. And I can find Guido. You know, I'll bet I could find myself a Guido by tonight in Tyler, of all places. After all, someday this creepy-looking fellow may become the godfather of the father of your grandkids. So pay attention. You know, you don't want to have this guy in your life forever, so you better be careful who your daughter allows into her life. Another infallible sign of lack of respect, tattoos and body piercing. No self-respect, no respect for the body, and not likely to respect anybody else, not even God. Another sign of the loss of self-respect among teenage girls is the shocking prevalence of oral sex. I was just blown away when I began to hear some of the stories and the statistics and the conversations about this sort of thing. Now, it is true that girls can't get pregnant that way, but it is demeaning beyond belief. Totally demeaning. Ever since Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, this has been on the increase among teens, and I can't help but think that there's a connection. What teenage girls, though, may not know, because they haven't looked into this sort of stuff, they never studied this stuff, they never have, analyzed what's going on, is that oral sex is a dominance thing. It is an exercise of power, and it is intended in a way to be demeaning. For Bill Clinton, it was power over women. Remember, that's what men substitute when they have lost the power to love. Bill Clinton was substituting power over women because, and I feel safe in saying this, he himself had also lost the power to love. Girls who give oral sex to boys have no self-respect. So why do they do it? Well, they're trying to fill that empty space inside of them where love is supposed to dwell. I remember watching this documentary, which I'll never get out of my mind as long as I live, The Lost Children of Rockdale County, and watching these beautiful young girls being interviewed by these people and the things that they were doing and talking frankly about with a television camera there and a microphone and all this kind of stuff and going away just talking about all the stuff that was going on. My dominant impression as I watched was that the kids who were engaging in sex in all kinds of circumstances and places were kids who were starved for attention. They got no respect at home, for attention is an important kind of respect. Don't forget that. They got little affection at home. They got no attention at home. They were starving to death. The soul that is killed with hunger is better than the soul that is killed by a lack of love. They are both dead, even though one is walking. Now, what are the signs that there is still hope for love? I don't want to be negative. Let's talk about the positive. This man or woman who is the object of your interest at the moment, is patient with you. That simple little thing of being patient with you suggests that the soil here might allow love to grow. It shows respect, patience does, and it also shows the possibility that love may grow. Also, this man or woman is kind to you, does not use profanity in your presence or against you. Now, in 51 years of marriage, Allie and I have never allowed profanity to enter our home and our life together. Never. No argument is ever allowed to rise to the point of calling each other names. And don't imagine that we haven't had arguments. We've had 52 years worth of arguments. But there are certain elements of respect for one another that cannot be transgressed. And you know, the funny thing about it is, I don't think we ever thought about it in those terms. The truth is that in our generation, we were taught to respect people. We were taught self-respect, not self-esteem. It's totally different. If you don't see the difference, you need to think about it and look into it. We were taught self-respect. And if you have proper self-respect, having self-respect allows you to understand how what you do affects other people. And that therefore you can respect others because you respect yourself. So anybody who uses profanity or calls you names and that type of thing lacks respect and should not be in your life. If you're already married to such a person, you need to get together and start working some of this stuff out because it kills love. It's a lack of respect. It does not allow love to grow. Now, all of the respect doesn't mean, by the way, that love is there. It only means that it is still possible. The man or woman who is the object of your interest is not the jealous type. That means it's possible for love to grow here. He doesn't want you to be obsessed with him. Some men are obsessed with themselves and think everybody else ought to be obsessed with them. You know, it's more than ego in some people. I mean, ego is, we all have a healthy ego, hopefully, and we're able to feel strong and feel confident in ourselves. But the point is, some men think everybody should be obsessed with them just like they are. Love can't grow in this soil. It's not possible for someone who has that much love for himself to have any room in his life for anybody else. Isn't that plain? That someone who loves himself so much will not have room for you. Even the envy of other people who are not even related to the situation you're in is bad soil because it is of a kind, and it will also eventually include you. Envy is a very unhealthy emotion, is very destructive, and it makes it impossible for love to grow in that soil. This person, this man, this woman that you are interested in, this person must not be full of themselves if you expect love to grow in this soil. I remember the most common criticism I think that I heard about Bill Clinton over the years, apart from the direct things about his conduct, but the most important criticism I heard of him that had to do with his character was that everything was about him. Everything that happened, everything in the world almost, everything in his life, everything in the White House, everything was about him. Let me tell you, this is not the kind of man or woman that you want. A person also you don't want is a person who is consumed with appearances, who makes a parade of himself. This is not soil in which love can grow. Now, if you're still wondering, well, can love develop in this situation? What sort of things am I looking for in a person? Well, one thing you would hope that this person or this woman or this man is well-behaved. Now, that seems obvious, but of course, don't all of us misbehave from time to time? Well, yeah, we do, but this is crucial. Good behavior goes with self-respect, because good behavior says, I don't want other people to think I'm an abject fool. I don't want other people to think I'm a bad person. I don't want people to think I'm a thief. I don't want people to think I'm a liar. It's self-respect. And again, it's at the root of good behavior. People who have no self-respect can behave any way they want to behave, and it doesn't bother them. People who do, it does bother them. Now, I do want to tell you, rebellion has its place and its time. Sometimes you've got to stand up for yourself. Sometimes you have to say, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to go in that direction. No, I'm not going to allow myself to be dominated by this situation. No, I am not going to do that. Sometimes you've got to do that. But beware of the rebel without a cause. The person who is just rebellious. Everybody else is wearing this kind of clothes. I'm not going to wear that kind of clothes. Everybody else is doing this. I'm not going to do. Just rebel for the sake of rebelling. It's not healthy. Stay at arm's length. You also want to be sure that this man or this woman does not have a bad temper. And one thing I want to tell anybody in here that you're single and you're thinking about someday getting involved with another human being, don't get involved with a human being who has a bad temper thinking that it will get better or that you can improve it or that you can save him or her. Don't ever let that thought cross your mind. There's a proverb, chapter 19:19. You should be able to memorize that without any trouble at all. Proverbs 19:19. A man of great wrath shall suffer punishment, for if you deliver him, you will have to do it again. Now, this proverb has saved me an enormous amount of grief in my life because I have known people like this. And I have been tempted to try to intervene, to try to step in and stop it, or try to somehow rescue this person. And I remember this proverb says, no, you can get him out of the scrape, but you'll have to do it again. And again, and again. If he's been arrested for getting involved in fights and been carried off to jail, don't go down and make bail for him. You'll just have to do it again. Love cannot grow in this soil. It's impossible. Another thing is, this person, this man or this woman, does not think badly of people and does not speak evil of them. In other words, the kind of person that you want in your life is not the kind of person who's constantly running people down. You're not looking for the fault finder, the person who can pick out everything that's wrong of everybody in the room and have it cataloged before he goes home. You don't want this kind of person in your life, do you? I certainly wouldn't. There comes a point in time when that sort of thing can begin to wear badly, and it shows a lack of respect for others. Even people you don't like, you should be able to have enough respect for them that you don't run them down to third parties. Shouldn't you? Don't you want that? And see, here's the thing. The person who is running other people down to you is probably running you down to them. You can almost write that down in your book. Even if you're dating, even if you think you're in love with one another, if this man or this woman is continually running other people down, they're probably going to do. It will eventually fall back on you. Another thing, this man or this woman is the kind of person who will bear up under tough situations and will not fall apart on you. Now, you can't always know about this when people are teens. Teens are still learning how to handle the world in a lot of ways, which is a good argument for what? Not getting deeply involved with someone when you're a teen because you can't know how people are going to turn out. But people who panic, people who come unstuck, people who run in place screaming because they don't know what else to do, this is not the kind of person that you can afford to spend the rest of your life with. How important is this going to be? When your kid is running a fever of 104 degrees, beginning to have convulsions and is throwing up every 15 minutes, to have a person who doesn't fall apart, who's steady, dependable, stops and thinks before he takes any action. Another thing you want to look for or think about is someone who is optimistic about the future. Pessimists are not the kind of person you really want to spend the rest of your life with. Now, I will say this for pessimists. They too do tend to be right about half the time. Sometimes, maybe a little more often, because if you're negative about people, the chances are you will not be disappointed nearly as often as you are if you're positive about people. But I get the distinct impression in the Bible that what God wants us to be like is to be optimistic and to think well of people until we have absolute proof that we have to think otherwise. He would far rather for us to get burned every once in a while than to go around through life cynical, thinking badly of everybody we come into contact with. I think he would rather have us give money as a handout to a worthless bum on the street who goes and buys drinks with it than to refuse to help someone who really is in need of help. Optimistic doesn't mean he wears rose-colored glasses. Oh, no. What it means is he is hopeful and he doesn't quit trying when things don't go quite right. Also, this man or this woman doesn't sweat the small stuff, and they recognize that most of it is small stuff. There's a book title out, I think, with that. Don't sweat the small stuff, and then subtitle is Everything is Small Stuff. Doesn't worry that much about little things and can recognize what's little, can know what's important, can know what's not important, and so forth. Finally, this man or this woman always assumes the best of you. Always gives you the benefit of a doubt. Always thinks your motives were good. Always thinks you had the best of intent. And doesn't sit there thinking, well, why is she talking to that guy on the phone? Or why was she too late getting home from work? Or why was he here at 6 o'clock instead of 5:30 like he normally? A person always thinks the best of you. Now, all these things are soil in which love can grow, but you have to give love a chance. Love can be the greatest thing in your life. It can give you joy you never imagined was possible. Now, where did I get all this stuff? Well, I got it from 1 Corinthians 13, of course. Some wise people probably already spotted that, but that's where it came from. What we call the love chapter in the Bible. I just approached it obliquely rather than directly. There was a song by Joni Mitchell some years ago. You may remember it. I'm not going to sing it to you, but I will remind you of one verse. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy, dancing way that you feel, as every fairy tale comes real, I've looked at love that way. But now it's just another show. You leave them laughing when you go. And if you care, don't let them know, don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all. And what a shame it is for a person to reach middle age and to have to say, I really don't know love at all. And I can't help thinking that a young person who goes to bed with someone who does not love her or him like their own life is paying a terrible price, is playing the fool, and may never know love at all. Give love a chance.